Hello everyone and welcome. This is a form fix / review video on my client Brandon here. If there is a lift or a move that you have questions about or you want to see done, reviewed, you have any concerns on, please let me know down in the comments what lift it is, and I will be happy to make a review video or kind of help you out, answer any little questions that I can. If this video helps you, please hit the thumbs up button, or if you just want to show some love, click the thumbs up button and like the video. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Brandon that you're looking at here. He is currently 15 years old. He will be turning 16 this upcoming December, so he's young. With young lifters, it's important, very important, that you have good form. They know what they're doing, and that the progression with the weights and the load is proper, because you don't want to overtax anything, and that's how it leads to some injuries, and it could be worse. Now here's the thing, those two things that I just said, they apply to everybody. It's not just young people, but they're just extra emphasized on that. And there's also some other variables for the young people, the biggest of which I think is that they grow. They're currently growing. Brandon, he's grown inches since we started training. So it's like, he learns the form of one thing, and now all of a sudden his legs are longer and his arms are longer. So that changes leverages, and that changes the way things feel. So if he has that knowledge of where the weight should be distributed, how it should feel, what the form should look like and feel like, he's better at adapting as he grows to be safer and stronger. So let's get into the actual video. I'm going to play it for you. The video on the left is, now no one's perfect, so I'm not totally satisfied with the video on the right, but it is much better progress. He's a lot safer and a lot stronger. So the video on the left is, we'll say, just bad with the green plates, and the video on the right is good with the yellow plates. So let's let you check it out. The things that I look at are, well, I'm going to review with you guys today, are the feet, the knees, the hips, back, and shoulders. It's a lot, but I'm just going to kind of give you the brief summary. This does also happen to be one of the more complicated lifts, even though it is picking something up from the floor. So it's so basic in its kind of theory, but there's a lot going on to be efficient and safe in it. And it's very easy to mess up because you can kind of muscle it up, if you will, but you risk a lot and there's for injury wise, and there's better ways to be more efficient, and you're only going to reach a certain amount of strength going through poor form. And I don't mean that in terms of just safety. There's a certain pathway that you kind of have to travel to recruit as much muscle as you can, or as much movers as you can, to be the strongest that you can. So if he's doing something like shifting too far forward and relying too much on his quads and not using his butt, which is one of his strongest muscles, to help him lift the weight up, he's only going to be able to lift so much weight until he learns how to use all the muscles that are involved in the movement. So we will start with the bottom portion. That's why I like to do it, so I don't miss anything. The feet. So here's the first thing that you have to know. This is we're doing a deadlift variation, okay? So there's a few things that you can do with this bar. You can squat it up. Actually, there's a lot. I'm not going to list them all, but we are doing primarily a hip hinging movement, which does incorporate the legs and knee flexion, of course, a little bit, but it's more focused on a balance between the legs and the butt, and bringing the hips forward as he comes up, and timing that with the knees straightening out as well. So I don't want his knees to be too far forward, which in the video on the left, I'll circle his knees here, you can see how bent his knees are compared to how bent his knees are here. Now they're still bent, but it's just not as much. And what I had him do in this video over here is we shifted his hips back. So that's going to give him the opportunity to use more of his glutes and his hamstrings and not just his quad. Because in this video on the left here, when he goes to pull this up, he's relying pretty much solely on his quad here and his back. In a second, I'll see if I can fast forward, which he has totally rounded, and it uncoils at the top to kind of release and help him stand straight up. So this one's awful right here on the left. You can see how it's just totally bent his back here, and it's all quad, and then his really like almost his thoracic spine is helping him to extend and come up, as opposed to bringing his hips forward by using his hamstrings and his glutes in combination with his quads. So that's why I have him kind of push his hips back more to start. His weight is in his midfoot and his heel. He is pushing up with his legs, of course, but as he's doing that, he's squeezing his butt and bringing his hips forward. So you'll be able to see that in the video on the right. As he comes up, that first rep's not that great, but this rep is awesome. So this is his second rep here. We're looking at the video on the right with the yellow plates. He's gonna come up, and you'll be able to see as his knees are straightening out, his hips are already starting to come forward, and he times it perfectly. Now he's up, boom, hips and knees together. Whereas the video on the left, the green plates, you're gonna see him come up, and his hips are actually almost already up, and his legs are still bent, and his back is rounded. So it's really just it's both. It's not just a safety thing, but it's just not an efficient way to move and pick up the weight. And he'll always hit kind of this cap of how much weight he can move by lifting like that. Now, what also cues his hips are his shoulders and his hand position. So when you use this bar, the thing that you have to keep in mind is, if you look at the video on the left, you have to grab the bar right in the middle of the handle, because here you can see I'm circling his hand here in the green weight video. It's a little behind. It's like a little in the back. It should move up a little bit more to be in the middle. And you can kind of already see the bar is tilting forward a little bit. Whereas this video, he has it right in the middle, and he's coming straight up with it. If it's not straight, it's going to rock, and then it's going to shift you as you're kind of lifting up, and that's not really what you want. You want to be set in the pathway and come up nice and smooth and go from there. Now, the other thing that you can't see in this video, but that he did change, is that he created tension before he lifted in his hamstrings and his glutes and his legs. So he doesn't just jerk it up. That's still something that we kind of work on, and it's a very hard thing to master, especially with the deadlift, from picking things up off of the floor. You kind of want to jolt into it and pick it up, but you need to have your shoulders squeezed back, your lats tight, your tension in your hamstrings and your glutes, like you're holding the weight up already before you pull it. That way there's not that snapping, kind of jerking it off the floor reaction, which can cause to, of course, injury, and it's also, again, not really an efficient way to pull up the weight. So I want to show you one more thing about as we move up, because we kind of talked about the knees, the hips, even the back. The last thing is the shoulders. So the shoulders, the chest, and the head will kind of capture all in one here. And this is very, very big and important. And Brandon does actually something that's opposite of what most people do. So before, actually, because I have this pause, a lot of people also misunderstand what it means to have a flat back or a neutral spine. Because you can see in this position, Brandon is bent over pretty extreme. Maybe even, you could argue, almost too much in a way, where it's a lot of folding. But his spine remains neutral, and he's going to be using his legs and his hips first So he will end up, you can see it in this rep here. Hopefully it goes. Oh, actually he's putting it down too. So right here, let's try to get a video of him doing the rep. Here we go. So looking at the video with the yellow. Oh yeah. So he was just putting it down. That's why he was so bent over. Not that he was putting it down, because I wouldn't want him to put it down like that, but he was done. So he was kind of straightening out his legs prior to his hips and everything, but he wasn't lifting anymore, so it's okay. But this here, the video on the right, yellow plate, is a great starting position. Very strong. He's going to be using more of his glute as opposed to his quads. We could have him bend his knee more and make it more of a squat movement, and that would be using more of his quads. Again, that's not wrong. That's just a different exercise, basically. So that's the starting position with the flat back. I'm sorry. Well, flat back means neutral spine. When I say flat back, it doesn't mean straight up, which you will see him try to kind of do in this video on the left. He tries to lift his head up, get his chest up to keep his back flat, but it kind of ends up doing the absolute opposite. You'll hear people talk about the head and the chest, and I think of them kind of as one. So usually when people say get your head up, it's primarily to cue your chest to come up, which straightens out your back. So I'm sitting here with poor posture right now, and if I bring my head up, my chest kind of comes up, and then I don't know if you can see, but my back straightens out when I bring my chest up. That's primarily the cue for your head. However, you can still have bad posture and just lift your head up. So if you're lifting your head up and it doesn't bring your chest up and it doesn't flatten out your back, it basically didn't do the job that the cue was supposed to do. So you need to be looking out for that. And also, it doesn't need to be up. It just needs to stay neutral or in a comfortable position where the spine stays as close to neutral as possible. It's not the end of the world if everything's not perfectly neutral, but you definitely need to make sure that you are using an appropriate load so you don't hurt yourself if that's the case. And you always want to strive to kind of have that perfect form, if you will. It's just, in my opinion, the best way to keep everything tight and move efficiently through the movement. There are some schools of thought that kind of disagree with that a little bit, but nothing to an extreme where it's like, yeah, your back should be rounded. They just kind of there's been a few studies that talk about how where if your back is in neutral, it doesn't necessarily reduce the risk of a disc injury, as opposed to if it was rounded maybe like 25, 35 degrees. You can still kind of get the same type of injuries, or it's not better or worse. But again, we err on the side of caution, and I think it kind of helps to set everything else up in an efficient pattern. Even if safety wasn't your primary concern, I think you'll be stronger if you strive to go with that kind of pattern. So that's pretty much it on the form review. We fixed his knees. They're not bending too much, but it's okay if they do bend. He'll just be more quad focused. The main thing is we don't want him to go in, so we kept that good. The weight is in the midfoot and the heel. The hips and the knees are timed as they come up. They both straighten out together. The spine stays neutral. By keeping the shoulders back, he tightens his lats, and that also helps with the neutral spine. And his head or neck stays neutral as well, cueing the chest to stay flat and to bring that up all in one to keep that neutral spine again. So hopefully that video helps you out. You at least know how to pick something up now. You know that this move is called the hex bar deadlift, and there's plenty of other variations that you can do, but I'm super proud of Brendan. He should be proud too for doing this, not only coming back with great form on this lift, but also much stronger and just super efficient. And this is actually an old video, so he's even stronger than this now, and he keeps progressing, so that is awesome. I'd be happy to make a part 2, and I think I will, on how we actually did the progression and what more specific things like the chin up and leg cues and hip cues that we actually did to fix those in particular issues. I just kind of wanted to talk about what goes into this lift and what makes him get stronger and safer in general. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.